I'm going to ask now a special guest to watch these pictures with me. He's Chris Krebs, the Assistant Secretary for Infrastructure Protection with the Department of Homeland Security with the Trump administration. He was in Puerto Rico just last week. Mr. Krebs, I'm so glad you're with us. You're watching these pictures. You hear the president asking people specifically about the infrastructure on that island. What can you tell us that they're dealing with?
So thanks, Harris. Good afternoon. Yeah, I was down last Monday with Administrator Long and the President's Homeland Security Advisor, Tom Bossert. Also, I went down Friday to San Juan with Acting Secretary Duke. The situation from Monday to Friday, infrastructure had improved. But I'll tell you this, we did an overflight of the middle part of the island to get a look at in particular, the power infrastructure as well as some of the water treatment plants. It was truly something to see. But I think there's some good spots here about the power infrastructure. I heard yesterday that that PREPA, the local power authority, had indicated they expect to get about 14% of the customers on the island back up on the grid in the next couple weeks, 2 weeks in fact. You add on top of that, you see the Central Business District in San Juan. They're back on the grid. The port's on the grid. The airport's on the grid. Granted, that's San Juan, but there's a focused effort by all the federal government, state, local, volunteer organizations, and the private sector really getting down into Puerto Rico and helping out the folks down there.
You know, you couldn't miss it from the pictures. And I'm glad to hear that 14% of the customer base that is outside of San Juan, as you were saying, will be back on the power grid in days. But you're talking about millions of people without power. It's a tough situation. What you couldn't miss were the trees that were still in the same position. I mean, they have not had the chance to clean up the way that Texas did and Florida did. And so now you go in there, and you said it was something to see. Tell me what you saw. I'm curious to know. This is going to be a big job. The president said this is going to be a chunk of budget to help pay for this. He's in it to make it go forward, or as we say, in it to win it. But it's huge.
I think you're right, and I think this is going to take quite some time and when you're talking about long-term recovery. But I think what's important to keep in mind, the Puerto Rican people, they are resilient. In the same time, when we talk about the infrastructure down there, we need to come back and bring back a resilient infrastructure. I don't think this is the last hurricane that Puerto Rico is going to see. So when we do build that grid back up, and I was happy to see yesterday that PREPA, again, the power authority, they're looking at putting metal poles in there instead of perhaps wooden poles. So it's important to think about how do we withstand one more hurricane? How do we get the community back so it can spring back resiliently after an event like that?
You know what I also hear you saying, Mr. Krebs? And it actually is, if you will, a silver lining, if you can even find one in all of this. They had deaths on that island. They had so many things that they've been dealing with. We're showing pictures on the left of the screen where people can see that homes were just on a precipice of water at one point. But when you look at this, the silver lining might be, well, I've read very few of those structures outside of San Juan really could have taken much. Where people were living, not the resorts, but where people were living. This is an opportunity now to go back, as you say, with metal instead of wood and revisit those issues. The president, though, do you think we have a president right now who may best understand all of this? He's a builder. You heard him talking specifically in detail about, well, was it mostly concrete or was it mostly wood? His curiosity level. Is that aiding the process of coming back?
I think that's right, and I think that's what you're seeing right now. The president's out there getting his hands dirty, and he's demonstrating that, and I would say the same to those in Puerto Rico, your federal government is behind you. You have the full force of the federal government, whether it's the civilian agencies or the Department of Defense and the Army Corps of Engineers. We're behind you. We're there. We were there before Irma, in fact. And you're going to get what you need in terms of, in particular, the economy, getting the economy back up and running. These are all important factors to ensure that the island of Puerto Rico recovers quickly from this hurricane.
You know, I want to ask you, too, just about what you think the timetable may look like. You say a long-term plan. Do you have, from what you saw with infrastructure there on the island, do you have enough places for people to stay right now? Are we looking at taking some people off of the island of Puerto Rico, bringing them to the southern mainland? What's kind of the short term in all this?
So in terms of shelters and things like that, I don't have a really good sense of the long-term plan there. My focus is on utilities, communications, water, transportation. My understanding, again, of the power situation is you'll get a nice size bump in the next couple weeks, and then over the ensuing weeks, you'll get a little bit, you'll get more. And I do think the power story will start playing out over the next couple days and weeks. The Army Corps is there in support of PREPA and the governor, and they are focused. In fact, they've got a contractor, and they're working back stateside with some of the on the mainland with some of the power companies and the CEOs of some of the major power providers. And you'll get the equipment, the trucks, the people, the poles, the wires, things like that. That'll start coming in very quickly. But you're also thinking about communications. I think if there's anything that we can do right now to really return some level of normalcy to the island is get the communications infrastructure back up and running. And I've been working pretty closely with a number of the carriers down there in getting some of the cellular capabilities, the temporary pop-up capabilities, cell on wheel, cell on light truck. And that's important. Let them get back online, communicate with family, and that'll just, restore a little bit of normalcy. But the other good news story here is, like Walmart. Walmart has about 28 facilities open on the island. 50% of them are taking credit cards. That's important. That means they're connected to the economy. I'd also add that those 50%, if they're connected with credit cards, they're also handing cash out. You got to think, if you're not able to get to the bank in a week or so, that's going to make difference in terms of your ability to go out and get the commodities.
Or if you can't find an ATM that's powered.
Right, yeah. That's right.
This is great to get your real-time perspective through all of this and for you to tell us what's coming down the pike. Because not to bring politics in here too much, but the kind of criticism that the president has taken. And the things that you're describing didn't just happen because he got on the ground today. Some of the things you're talking about with communications, that's been something that's been kind of a rolling problem all along since the storm, and that connectivity with people, not just on the mainland of the U.S., but all over the world from that island. And so when you talk about putting that kind of infrastructure, if you will, into place, that didn't just happen today. So, I say that because in all fairness, obviously you've been doing a lot to bring this on. The information about Walmart is new to me about those facilities and credit cards. Again, tell me why that is critical moving forward, that we have our companies on that island with their ability to do that, because maybe that'll get replicated because people see it here.
Right. And I mentioned earlier, the people of Puerto Rico, it's a resilient community. They don't want to be victims. They want to get back to daily life. They want to get back to work. They want to get back to their daily routines. And part of that is being able to get out, get the food and the resources, the commodities you need. And so if you can do that little bit of reestablishing the communications infrastructure, getting them back out there, I think it's really important.
All right. Mr. Krebs with the Homeland Security Department giving us real-time answers about infrastructure on Puerto Rico, and also watching the breaking news with the president with me today. I appreciate your time. Thank you and your expertise.
Thanks, Harris.